Now we're going to get ready to the ring entrance of our next contestants. This bout's going to see a Cuban and an American lock horns. Referee Rizbayev from Kazakhstan. Judges Husinov, Sinar, Tadik, Butar, and Castro. This is pitting the Cuban boxer of Lazaro Alvarez against the American Joseph Diaz in the blue corner. Alvarez took second place at the 2007 AIBA Cadet World Championships. He also took first early this year at the Pan American Games qualifier. Yesterday, he beat Chaine Parinello, who himself was ranked number 7 in the world, of Italy, by a score of 13-11. Joe Diaz, he's one of the members of the AIBA's Semi-Pro League, World Series of Boxing. In addition to that, he took first place at the 2011 USA National Championships as well as the 2011 USA National Olympic Trials. Yesterday, he unseated Oscar Valdez of Mexico, who is ranked number 2 in the world by a razor-thin margin, 22-21. So let's see, Cuba versus America. Alvarez in the red corner, Diaz in the blue corner. And looks like Alvarez, slightly taller boxer, long legs, long arms, a long body all around. He's going to box from the outside. Diaz is going to need to figure out a way to get in there. Diaz boxing in the southpaw stance, and so is indeed Alvarez, although that may change as the fight progresses. A left hand to the body by Alvarez and a right hand over the top. Diaz standing his ground. Diaz is pushing the action a little bit, while Alvarez seems content on boxing from the outside. Diaz looking for an opportunity to cut off that ring. Alvarez looks like he's going to be very comfortable doing some dancing and circling, using the most of the ring that he can to box on the outside and use those long arms to his advantage, as no doubt would be his game plan. Diaz, on the other hand, is going to need to get inside, and no doubt Coach Joe Zanders, head coach of the USA boxing team, has made it very clear to Diaz that he's going to need to get inside those long arms of Alvarez. Big right hand by Alvarez, partially blocked. Another right by Alvarez. He's just sort of pawing those jabs out there, not really intended to have much effect, just to sort of keep his distance from Diaz. Diaz is going to want to start to pick up the action now. We're halfway through round 1, and these are valuable seconds ticking away, and I'm going to tell you why. There's only 3 rounds, and there's only 3 minutes per round, and 2 minutes are just about gone. So he's almost 30%. He will be at the end of this round. 30% of his time will be done. And if he lets Alvarez continue to let the clock tick away, Alvarez is going to have a tactical advantage. He's going to be able to just pot shot Diaz from outside and otherwise not engage. Diaz is going to need to get inside. He's going to need to press the action and start scoring points, or else he's going to see some confidence by Alvarez, who may even start stepping forward himself. Although that could work to Diaz's advantage as a counterpuncher, I'd like to see Diaz start to score more points, start to press the action. A lot of these boxers, they're on a big stage. Sometimes there's nerves, there's a little timidity, and what ends up happening is that they don't realize that they're losing until the 2nd or 3rd round. By then the urgency kicks in, and they need to pick up the action, but sometimes there's just not enough time, and with that urgency under which they box, they sometimes make mistakes. They don't have a clear head. They start thinking about things that they shouldn't be thinking about when they need to focus on the task at hand. Joe Diaz hasn't really gotten inside the long arms of Alvarez, hasn't really landed too many punches, so it seems, throughout the entirety of round 1. Of course, the official scoring may tell a different picture, but for now, Alvarez looks very comfortable with the way this fight is going, staying on the outside. And there you have it, a score of 6-2 by the Cuban. So, as predicted, the Cuban boxer is going to be able to really rack up points from the outside like that. And I would imagine that the corner of the Cuban team rather the corner that works the Cuban team, in this case the coaches, as you see there, are probably telling Alvarez to just continue to do what he's doing. Stay on the outside and box. Use the jab, keep the young Diaz off of him, and otherwise rack up points when he can. Whereas in Diaz's corner, they're no doubt going to be telling him that he needs to get inside. He needs to change the course of this fight as it's gone through round 1, because otherwise it's going to be the same result in round 2 and 3, and ultimately Diaz is going to find himself on the short end of a decision. So with that said, let's see what advice the boxers got, but more importantly, let's see how they execute their game plan here in round 2. We are again here at the Heydar Aliyev Sports Complex in Baku, Azerbaijan. I am Castle Chalice, calling the action from Ring B here in the quarterfinal round of the 2011 AIBA World Boxing Championships. Diaz from America, Alvarez from Cuba. Diaz trying to get inside and to shave off some of the deficit he fell into in the first round. Down by a score of 6-2. Right hand by Alvarez. Alvarez is going to continue staying on the outside as long as Diaz lets him. Diaz is going to want to use his feet. He clearly needs to use his feet. He can't really use his hands. He could try and bum rush Alvarez by just charging him and throwing punches. Alvarez looks a little too keen for that, and all Alvarez would need to do in that instance is to turn to the left or turn to the right. By circling, when I say turn, I mean circling to the left or the right, he could stay in the pocket, avoid the rush of Diaz, and otherwise continue to throw punches. Instead, Diaz would be well served to use his feet and to try and get on the chest of Alvarez to crowd him, to cut off the ring, and to start going to the body. I've seen this style by some of the Cubans throughout this tournament. They keep their hands very low, and perhaps it's a combination of confidence, it's a combination of stylistic advantage perhaps. When there's a height advantage, they feel that they can keep their hands down. But look at the way that Diaz, or rather Alvarez, keeps his hands so low. Diaz needs to be able to exploit that, and he needs to get in close enough to do that with his feet. I'm sure once Diaz is able to breach that safety zone of Alvarez, we'll see Alvarez's hands go up a little higher, but he knows that Diaz can't hit him from that far away, so he feels a little confident keeping his hands that low. Diaz needs to change this very quickly, because now there's 1 minute left in round 2, and I haven't seen much of a progression or a change in style from either boxer. It seems like while Alvarez was likely following the game plan that his corner most certainly told him, which was keep doing what you're doing, Diaz hasn't really changed his game plan much. He's continuing to follow Alvarez around the ring. Not a good thing to do with a taller, fast counterpuncher like Alvarez. So, 30 seconds left. Again, the score was 6-2 after round 1 in favor of the Cuban. And now Diaz continues. See, Diaz is boxing as if he's in the lead. Diaz is boxing like he's got a 12-round bout ahead of him. And even if he did, I wouldn't recommend that style. He doesn't seem to be showing the urgency that I'm sure his corner is trying to make clear to him. And that's the end of round 2, and it's a score of 13-5. So again, much of the same as we saw in the first. Round number 3. Joe Diaz from America, Lazaro Alvarez from Cuba. And now Joe Diaz starting to let his hands go a little bit. Starting to get loud here in the Haydar Aliyev Sports Complex. Competition is really picking up. You can barely hear yourself think now. And there goes Diaz with a left hand. A left to the body and a left upstairs. So Diaz looks like he's getting a little closer, closing the gap. That's been Alvarez's safety zone, the little bubble he's kept around himself for much of the bout. Diaz has a lot of points he needs to score here. He's got a big margin he needs to erase. Now Alvarez is going to continue to do what he's been doing and box from the outside, using sharp punches, straight punches. And there's Diaz using his feet to get closer. The referee going to caution Diaz for punching on the hip. Got to keep those punches up. Diaz just truly has not figured out a way. It's unfortunate. It's going to be very hard for him to erase the deficit here with just over a minute and a half to go in this round. He's got Alvarez against the ropes, and it almost seems at this point that Alvarez is letting him come in, letting him get closer, trying to pot shot with him. I don't think he's too concerned about the power of Diaz, although I'm not sure he's even felt what power Diaz has. Diaz only scored a few points here in this entire bout, and they were not power punches. And they tie up here in the center of the ring. There's a minute and 10 seconds right now to go in the round. Now Diaz ripping some shots to the body while Alvarez's head is down. The referee will caution him for that. And lefts and rights by Alvarez now looking a little braver. Alvarez more willing to stand there and throw punches. He knows there's a minute left. He knows he's well up on points. Doesn't seem to be too concerned about Diaz's points. Maybe he feels he's got the victory in the bag on the scorecard. Maybe he could go for a knockout now. And maybe he can. Now he's starting to let his hands go, and Joe Diaz not quite sure what to do. Again, this has been much a game of cat and mouse, where Diaz has been trying to close the gap on Alvarez and get in close enough to score some meaningful punches. And Alvarez, on the other hand, standing out comfortably on the outside. I mean, you'd almost think he could be reading a book while doing this with one hand, because he hasn't really needed to use more than one hand this entire bout. Very ho-hum an attitude he's taken, and you know what? To his credit, he knew what he needed to do. He had a very good game plan. He knew about his size advantage, his speed advantage, and he played his cards just right. Looks like this should be an easy decision for the Cuban.
Alvarez Lazaro, Cuba.
And 19-10, Lazaro Alvarez gets the easy decision. Walked right through Joseph Diaz, or rather walked right away from him, but just the same, did what he needed to do, and congratulations to Lazaro Alvarez. You see some action here from round 3, and Joe Diaz just could not figure out a way to get in on this man. Couldn't get close enough at any point, was never really a threat to the Cuban boxer. And as such, another American boxer eliminated from this tournament.